This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hi and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Tyler and my guest today is Sheena Yap Chan. Hi Sheena, welcome.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here today to chat with you and to have, hopefully your listeners will be able to gain something from this interview and be able to take action in their own lives.
Yes. Sheena is the host of Tao of Self Confidence and the author of The Fearless Asian Woman. Sheena, I listened to your podcast, and what really astounded me is you have 809 episodes out there in only 2 years. That's an episode a day. How did you manage that, and how did you find so many amazing women?
Well, for starters, my podcast has been around for 5 years. So
5 years. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, 5 years. No worries. I know it's still a lot of work. I mean, people don't realize that podcasting is a labor of love, but I really wanted to elevate Asian women's voices. And that's why I decided to do like 5 podcasts a week in a span of 5 years. I just decided if I really wanted to create a representation, this is how I wanted to do it. Now with over 800 episodes, I have lessened it down a bit, but I started this podcast because I just wanted support, first of all, when it comes to dealing with confidence issues, especially for Asian women, because I always felt like I was the only one dealing with what I was dealing with. And second is representation is like very huge for me. I mean, society keeps seeing Asian women as quiet and submissive and obedient, and I really hated that. I want to create a stronger representation of Asian women who've been able to come out of their worst situations to thrive. I've interviewed women who've been in state prison, who have cancer, who've been in a domestic relationship, abusive relationship, who've been bankrupt, but still be able to have the confidence to pick themselves back up and keep moving forward. And so when I first started, I just started interviewing people I knew, my friends. And then, as I started gaining a little bit more confidence step by step, I would just approach women who felt like they had a very great story to tell. And, it's not easy to find 800 women, right? You get a lot of rejection, but I am grateful for the women who said yes, who decided to share their story on my platform.
I love your podcast. I love it for 2 reasons. First, because it's women for women. And I'm learning through my podcast how important it is that we share our stories and how motivating and empowering it is. It sounds ridiculous. Let's just tell each other our own stories. But it's so powerful, And B, I like it as we shortly chatted before our interview. I like it because it's killing this stereotype that's existed for too long about the shy Asian woman. And it's beautiful that you're empowering women of any race through your podcast.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask is about your books as well.
So I do have 2 books coming out in 2021. The first book is called Asian Women Who Boss Up, and we're going to feature 16 Asian women, how, they're going to share their stories of how they're able to forge their own path and thrive. So I co-created this book with another lady. And then the other one is called Women of Color Who Boss Up. And, it's the same thing. We're going to feature 16 women of color who's able to share their stories again and forge their own path. I'll be featured in that. And, for me, these books are very important because how many books do you see on Amazon where Asian women are featured on a cover or women of color are featured on a cover? Like there's none. Or if there is, it's very hard to look for, or you can just count it in the palm of your hand. And for me, representation is huge. It's 2020 and we're still lacking so much representation. And, these are one of the ways we could do it through a book. People can see that there's people that look like them who are able to do something to live life for themselves. And if it's possible for them, then it's possible for me.
Sheena, I was curious about what is your job or your profession outside of being a podcaster and a book author?
So far it's been, podcasting and, book author. I'm also getting into, coaching and speaking more. So, because I understand like a lot of women need help there. And you don't have to do things alone, right? I used to think like having a coach was something that I did not need, but I realized it was something that I definitely needed because it really helped me in my own confidence. Even though I talk about confidence, on my podcast, talking confident about confidence and taking action are like two different things. And sometimes you just need somebody to give you that little push or to be with you side by side to help build yourself up. And, it makes a huge difference, whether it's, in your business, in your fitness, it does help. Like just being surrounded with like-minded women or being surrounded with women who can lift you up, especially when you don't see yourself in that way, right? Or you have this negative perception of yourself, or, sometimes we have a lot of blind spots that we don't see, and, there's someone else who can catch it for us. And so that's why I want to do the same thing for other women.
And I'm sure you've learned a lot through your podcast about that. Apropos learning, would you share with me and my listeners what you've learned through interviewing 809 women about self-confidence?
For sure. I mean, one big thing that I realize is that we're not alone in this journey, right? And so these stories that I share on my podcast are very powerful because everyone can relate to at least one story in the podcast, whether you're a mother, a businesswoman, a millennial, a kid, an older person. There's a story out there for you. One of the biggest things I really learned is that your past does not define your present or future. I remember I interviewed this one lady who's she's the world's first licensed armless pilot because she was born with no arms.
Wow.
And I remember, she was sharing her story of the moment she realized that she could love herself for who she is. And it was, I think, like in 8th grade when she decided to go into the bus without her prosthetic arms. She just went in the bus in her true form self, and she realized like she loved herself for who she is. And because of that, it really helped her propel to be, an armless pilot. She has a black belt in karate. She's a motivational speaker, but she gets to live life on her own terms. And she didn't let, having no arms define who she is. Another person I interviewed, she was a drug addict, a drug offender. She sold drugs when she was a teenager. She went to state prison for 3 years. But now she's a spiritual coach. She even has her own school called the Divine of Self Confidence. And it's like she really turned her life around because she realized what she saw in the mirror was not who she wanted to be, and she wanted to change that. And so it's really important to know that no matter what your circumstances are, you have the power to change who you want to be in an instant, right? If there's something in the mirror you don't like, or you don't like, not like, if you look deep inside and you realize like this is not who you really are and you want to be that powerful, confident woman in the future, then, you can decide at that given moment that you'll do whatever it takes to get there.
Thank you for sharing that. Sheena, I have one tiny last question before we jump into the topic of your mom. Are you a mom?
No.
Okay.
I have a nephew. That's the closest thing.
Now I understand how you have time for 809 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Mom Didi. Mom Didi is from the Philippines, and my guests, as I've learned, love learning a little bit more about different cultures and places. Can we start with Philippines? And can you tell me a little bit about where they're located and how big they are and the religion or the culture of Philippines?
For sure. So, the Philippines is located in Southeast Asia. It's like an hour plane ride from Hong Kong, or maybe an hour and a half. It consists of over 7,600 different islands to make the country.
Of how many?
7,600, a little over 7,600
Really?
islands. Yeah.
These are many islands.
Yeah. And it's also a very religious country. They are really big on being Catholics. That's the main religions that they practice in the Philippines. And, the Philippines is just a great country. If you ever want to check out nice beaches, the Philippines is definitely one of the places to go. Although the Philippines is great, we do have a lot of poverty in the country, especially now with the typhoons that's been happening. Some places in the Philippines have been flooded and destroyed completely because of it. And it's just so devastating just to even see the photos. And, I'm just praying that they're able to, rise up from it and rebuild again.
Is this because of climate change? Has this been happening recently, or is this historically been like that?
I think it is with the climate change because it's not the first time it's happened. So it's just crazy how the typhoons just really hit the country in such a crazy way. But other than that, Filipino people are great. We're very welcoming. We love to celebrate. We love to eat. We love big parades. Yeah, and we love the beach.
I've somehow recently been confronted with the Philippines a lot because I spoke to you, and then I just interviewed another guest whose mom is from the Philippines and her dad is Korean. And I had another guest who lived in the Philippines. And this guest told me how happy Filipinos are. And I was a little bit shocked when I heard that because I know about the poverty, and I was like, yeah, but aren't they extremely poor and don't they work extremely hard? I know from my friends who live there and have helped how hard these people work. And she said, yes, but they work hard and there's a lot of poverty, but somehow these people are managed to still be very happy and content. Do you feel that as well?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think it's also the influence of, religion, right? I mean, if you're Catholic, even though you're in a situation now, there's a reason for everything. And, we hope for the best, right? Something better will come along. Or we know that there's like a divine person or divine being that's looking out for us, even in times of like despair or suffering, right? Mm-hmm. There's an answer to everything. And so even though people do live in poverty, they see the simple things that really make them grateful, right? I remember we were at a boardwalk and there were just a bunch of kids, on the street playing, and we decided to buy them ice cream. And, this ice cream cost like 5 cents a scoop if you convert it. Mm-hmm. But they were so happy that they were able to get this scoop of ice cream, because if you live in the Western countries, ice cream to us is like nothing, but to them it's everything, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we take our basic necessities for granted because what's considered basic necessities here is a luxury there. Mm-hmm. So like a clean bath is like something huge for them, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not something they get every single day. So that's why I think they're just very more grateful for it, because they don't see it as a basic necessity. They see it as a luxury sometimes.
I've learned this from a friend who went to Cuba and was shocked how happy people are in spite of being so extremely poor, and yes, how we can take this for granted. She said chewing gum doesn't exist. Like chewing gum is luxury in Cuba. And it makes you think, for us who live in the Western countries, as you said, and we take so many things for granted, we shouldn't. But let's talk about Mama Didi. Can you tell me a little bit about her?
Yeah. So, my mom was born in the Philippines, but we actually come from a Chinese background. My grandparents migrated from China and Taiwan to the Philippines. If people don't know, there's actually a huge Chinese community in the Philippines. She was brought up in the Philippines. She went to school in the Philippines. She learned English in the Philippines. She met my dad in college. They got married, had 3 of us, and they both decided to move to Canada because they just wanted a better life for their kids, and they wanted to create more opportunities for their children. They realized staying in the Philippines might not help them, and so they decided to pick everything up and move to Canada. And that's not easy, especially when you're accustomed to a certain way of living. Back in the Philippines, we had someone who'd drive us to school, someone who would wash our clothes, someone who would cook our meals. And so, my mom never really lifted a finger until she came to Canada, right? She came to Canada and she had to learn how to cook, how to drive, how to clean. She had to do all those things. And, when I think about things like that, it's just a big eye opener, because it made me realize it doesn't matter how old you are. You can always learn a new skill at any given moment. And when you have like a purpose that's bigger than you, you're willing to do whatever it takes, right? Like, so for my mom, her reason for coming here was to have a better life for us, to take care of her children. And so she had to learn all these new skills so that she can be a better provider for her kids. Mm-hmm. And, as a mother, that's what most mothers want for their kids, right? And it's just crazy that she's been able to do all that, right? Now my mom's, one of my favorite cooks, of course, because she cooks all kinds of great things. People might not think that's a big thing, but it is. Right?
It is,
because
people who haven't moved countries, when you move from such a different culture to a completely different world with 3 children, and you have to adjust and take care of the 3 children and make sure they're okay, it's a huge thing. And you said you moved back and forth between the Philippines and Canada and the States. So she went through this a few times.
Yeah, so my grandfather was sick at the time, and so we picked everything back up again
Wow.
in Canada and moved to the Philippines, lived there for 3 years. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away, but my parents still wanted us to have a better life, and they knew like moving back to Canada was a great way for us to create our own opportunities, go to a better school, live a better life. Not saying that Philippines is a bad life, but it's just they want us to live a different kind of life, right? Where we can be more independent and, learn to adjust to different environments. That really helped us learn to adjust to different environments, right? Because when you're moving from one end to the other, it's not easy. And it's like you have to make friends again. You have to go to a brand new school and everything's new and you're like scared and like, you want to go back. We fought so many times, like, we don't want to move. We don't want to move. We want to stay here. And it was a battle, but we got through it.
Did she work?
Yes, my mom worked full time. She worked at the bank.
Wow, that's a lot. Working full time, 3 children in a new country.
Total lifestyle change.
Yeah. So you already mentioned a few lessons. Can we jump into lessons that you've learned from her?
Yeah, I mean, some of the lessons I've learned was her and my dad always told us to do what makes us happy. And I think that's very important because a lot of times we do things for other people. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you have to focus on yourself first before giving to others, right? If you can't fill your own cup, how do you expect to do that for other people? And sometimes we're forced, especially growing up in an Asian culture, you're forced to do something that is considered a good career or a good job, like being a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. And if that's not something you want to do, then you feel trapped, right? Or even, living in the Philippines, most of our families have a business. So, the children end up taking over that business. And sometimes that's not their life path, right? That's not something they want to do. I've talked to so many people out there who said, I really love ballet, but I really can't do it as a career because I have to stay back and run the family business because someday they'll take over it. So this is why, it's important to, when they say do something that makes you happy, even when it came to picking a college course, it's not like you should do this because it's good for you. It's more like, pick something that will make you happy. Because if you study for something that you have no passion for it, you're going to hate it. I tried to get an accounting certification and I just kept looking at that spreadsheet or balance sheet and I was like, I can't do this for the next 10 years. This is hell. And I quit because I just knew it wasn't for me. And it's okay to quit something that's not aligned with you, right? A lot of us feel like it's really bad to quit something, but if it's not serving you, it's okay to quit. Yeah. Another great lesson is gratitude, right? Always be grateful for the things that we've been blessed with. Like I mentioned, especially if you've ever lived in the Philippines, what's considered a basic necessity is a luxury over there for most people.
As we talked about, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's still lots of other lessons age is nothing but a number. And, my mom is a great example of that, moving here in her 30s, learning to do everything to provide for her daughters. That's not easy. As a mother, it's not easy.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work.
How is she now, apropos age?
Oh, she's great. Now that we have my nephew, she loves being a grandmother. He gets all the love.
Great.
But that's okay because he's very cute.
Do you have any others, Sheena, or should we recap?
We can just recap, yeah.
Okay, so I have written down adjusting to a new situation. If you want something to work, you'll make it work. That you can learn a new skill at any age. I love it how you said that age is nothing but a number. Gratitude. Independence, which they wished for you and your sisters. To do something that makes you happy. And I wrote down, if you want something to work, you'll make it happen twice. Obviously, it's an important one for me.
It's a great reminder for everyone, even me.
We can do it. Sheena, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it. I mean, if to anyone listening, I know 2020 has been one crazy year.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people had plans for 2020 like I did that just went to the garbage because
Yes.
everything was just at a standstill. But just know there's better days ahead, and you're not in this journey alone. You can check out podcasts like mine and Anna, or find a women's group, find a community where you can connect with, especially if you're living alone, right? Your mental health issues get heightened up. So it's very important to surround yourself with a community that can like lift you up or just even help you through a bad day.
Yes. I'm definitely putting a link to your podcast in my episode notes because I think it's really worth taking a look and a listen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sheena, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks for having me, Anna. I had a great time.
Me too. If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Tider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.